I'm going live right now.
Last time she was here in Denver, it was cold. He was holding her, right? And he's
I saw your picture. I'm glad you got in there at the last second.
You know,
you remember that?
I don't know what he's got here.
I've been here too long.
Did a good job.
And Rob, she can help. He was scared of Bob.
Bob didn't want to know.
Still had 37 and 40.
Did you try one in Bert?
We're going to finish this.
You will never know that you will be.
He said he could stay optimistic. That's all he
Shoot up here to that chair. I'm good with it.
Went to alligator yesterday.
It wasn't Heath's that heated theirs. I said it wasn't Heath's burger, so all my.
You take credit for Bobby's burger, he wasn't even here. He said they wouldn't want it when I just
No, that hot sauce was like a key.
Rob was scared. That's why he backed down there. Rob was scared. That's why he backed down.
I got scared. How are you going to be scared of a rigged event where Bobby put all his buddies in judges? I mean, that's just when you say, I don't have a chance.
That's not necessarily true.
I forgot to. Trash across here. I got trash. Well, can we can figure out, I mean, not always.
National therapy
I went to the golf therapist.
She does a good job.
I returned.
6 or 7 burgers.
Everyone takes it.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I heard.
No, I know.
We'll wrestle with it.
Get you all dark.
It's about as dark as I get. No. Well, and then Chuck was throwing all that. He just posted a picture on Facebook of the venue, you know, with nobody there. Came to Hawaii and this happened. Well, yeah, that was the whole reason for going. And so many people that he had talked to, neither one of us had talked to in years, were like, oh, congratulations. Even my niece, who got married after she changed her name, commented, hey, congratulations, just to keep it going, because that's what we do now. I wouldn't, even if we wanted to, I wouldn't. I had a friend of mine who wanted to do her wedding. No, it would not be cool. That was nice. What was that? What an emergency. We received it It's the MOA. It's to keep it going. It's just the revised MOA to continue to get the funds. They just had to assign it a new number since we closed that one with the contractor. So it's a grant agreement, so that we can put it out to bid and everything to get it done. That's all it is. In fact, it has the same total amount in it as the previous one. They just had to assign a new number. So that's all it is. How's that? No, I mean there's no issues. Kind of a technicality.
I
haven't seen him.
Okay.
Sorry.
She called me, I was gone, but figured the more I called her.
Yeah, I just copied you on it because it had this ADA ramp in front of one of those stores on Washington there, and it's an ADA ramp that comes from the parking spaces to the sidewalk, and it's just got a big, huge billboard. And so somebody was trying to push the wheelchair from the parking area to the sidewalk, and it stopped, because it was lit. You probably recognize it. Yeah.
Glad you're back.
In front of Love Ivy. So that's this one right here. That's the lift. So it just needs to be filled in. That's something but that's pretty substantial that she couldn't get the wheelchair up it, and it's sole purpose. I said, yeah, that's something that's not a big deal for them. Tom could do, or that whoever they have on Delta contract. Yeah, well, I was gonna just send it to Sarah and Alan, and then I was like, I just wanted to include in case there was any ADA, because she started asking me about, did we have our ADA certification, that document that we do, and I don't know where it is on the website, but so she might be putting in just a general inquiry as to where that's located. I mean, she's not being, she's kind of looking out for us, because if it's anyone else, they could actually sue us or something. It's my friend Janine, yeah, she was the one pushing her friend in a wheelchair. So if anybody else, that's like, just reach out for us. And so she just wanted to make sure that we had that.
There you go.
She wanted to be the ones that, so that's why.
We needed you here last October.
Oh.
Call the board meeting to order, 3rd, 6 p.m. Let the record show that Alderman Burgess is absent. The rest of the aldermen are present. This time, Mr. Glorioso with Parks and Rec will lead us in a prayer, and Mr. Pandy will lead us in a pledge. Please stand.
Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our community in the city of Ocean Springs. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We need a motion to accept the agenda with the stated addendum.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Henry, second by Mr. Aldermen. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We got 2 proclamations this evening. Candace, don't get it. It's a proclamation for Public Works. Whereas Public Works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, emergency management, and services that are vital importance to sustainability and resilient communities, public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the city of Ocean Springs. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are federally mandated first responders and engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in this city of Ocean Springs to gain knowledge and maintain ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works, first responders, and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, the Canadian Public Works Association, be it now that I, therefore, Kenny Holloway, Mayor of the City of Ocean Springs, proudly proclaim this week, May 15, 2022, as National Public Works Week in the City of Ocean Springs. And I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions that they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Thank y'all. Thanks for what you do in the city. Did you think that dog is?
Hey.
Friends over there? We also have pet partners therapy, animal teams. So we'd like to ask you ladies and gentlemen to stand up and bring your pets with you. Just right here, fine. Jamie, you got control of these things? Whereas there are thousands of pet partners therapy animal teams serving communities across the United States. And whereas Pet Partners has designated April 30th as National Therapy Animal Day. And whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams in the town of Ocean Springs play an essential role whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams in the town of Ocean Springs play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through the human-animal bond. And whereas Pet Partners therapy animal teams make billions of visits per year in settings such as hospitals, nursing homes, schools, and hospice. And whereas Pet Partners animal therapy teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students facing literacy challenges, and those approaching the end of life. And whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. Now, therefore, I, Kenny Holloway, Mayor of the City of Ocean Springs, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2022 as National Therapy Animal Day in the City of Ocean Springs, and encourage our citizens to celebrate with therapy animals and their human handlers. Further, I publicly salute the service of therapy animal teams in our community and communities across the nation. Thank you all.
Thank you.
That one growled at me, so he's out of it. I cut him out.
That was the ghost of past mayors. All right, item 4 on the agenda is public hearings. 1115 and 1117 Vermont Avenue, rezoning to CMX1 neighborhood commercial mixed-use district from R1 single-family residential district, parcel ID number 61220009.000 and 6122200012.000. Planning Commission recommends approval. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved, Mayor.
Motion by Ms. Cox, second by Mr. Wade. Carolyn, we'll ask you to explain.
Well, I'm going to introduce it and then get Mr. Morgan he presented it to Planning Commission in my absence. It is a rezoning. It was approved, recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. It is those parcels directly across from the Goodyear bays there on Vermont. So, Wade, if you want to give them a little more background into it.
Thank you. Yes, Carolyn said this has come to you with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. I did have a vote of 5-1 and then 1 abstaining. As pointed out, this is a request for rezoning from the R1 district to CMX1, which is the neighborhood commercial mixed-use district. That district is the least intense commercial district, both in terms of permitted uses and building height, much less intense than the CH zoning, which is to the east of it across Vermont and to the south, fronting on Bienville Boulevard. Has a maximum 2-story building height, and the intent of this district is to apply to neighborhood corridor areas with smaller scale commercial uses and a variety of surrounding residential uses. Higher traffic uses are not appropriate for this zoning district, which leads to the reason for the staff's recommendation for approval, and also I think the Planning Commission's vote to recommend approval of it also. There is a substantial, well-done analysis of the area that's part of your packet prepared by Mr. Scruggs. It goes into detail on the changes in the neighborhood and their reasons for requesting the rezoning. And the staff and the Planning Commission are recommending approval of this. Our reasoning is that the CMX1 district can function as a transition zone between the residential area to the west and the more intense shopping center, auto-oriented auto repair uses immediately to the east of the property. That way also the zoning change can be consistent with the comprehensive plan policies. I think that concludes what I was going to say. If you have any questions for us, we're glad to discuss it further. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Wade?
I just had one. There was some concern, and I made a call and just asked. From what I understand, the immediate idea behind this zoning changes to have VRBOs. Is that correct?
I think that was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting. I think Mr. Scruggs can probably address that in more detail, but that was part of the discussion.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against the request? Please step forward. I'll let them go first. Yes, ma'am. You would just state your name and address, please.
Yes.
To the podium.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Betsy DeVerney. My husband and I, Russell, have lived on Vermont for 42 years. We own the very first house past Goodyear all the way back to Marfall Landing is 830 feet. We've lived there 42 years, and we are definitely against any rezoning of property because we feel it will open the door to more commercial development. We are not against the VRBO idea, but I own 5 rentals myself, and it was told to me that this is to get financing. I've never gone commercial with any of mine to go get financing. And my fear is that this will open the door. There's a lot next door to it that's empty. The lot across the street that's empty behind Goodyear is owned by Mr. Canizero, who owns the shopping center. This would be to us just an opening for more commercial development of this property. And we are definitely against it. We are not against the VRBO thing. That can go forward. In fact, I'd welcome that because these 2 houses are dumps, really. They're a detriment to the neighborhood. But there is no way that I can be reassured that that's what's going to go there and that's what's going to stay there. And then once you have this, you're quite able to come in and ask for another rezoning or a variance or whatever you may think you want to put on the property. You know, and we're just against it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say one thing. So basically, like Wade said earlier, you know, this is the most restrictive, you know, 2-story. I mean, there's not much different, you know. And I'll tell you that if this gets approved, I mean, we're not willing to have him come back or listen to him want to make it any more or any greater than what it is commercial wise. So I mean, so what he gets is what he's going to have to build with. You know, we're not trying to do anything to make it more or less restrictive.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against?
Good evening. My name is Donovan Scruggs, and I'm here on behalf of Josh Rhymes to request this rezoning. You give me the clicker, Raymond, and I'll count 5 minutes. Okay.
You just tell me to go and I'll go.
I don't have time to go through this whole PowerPoint, so we'll just try to wing it best we can. I believe the opponent knew in speaking against this rezoning, you know, hit the nail on the head as to why we're here today, and that's primarily that the properties have been left in disrepair for a number of years. They've declined, and they've declined because there is a lack of desire to invest in these properties for what they are, single-family residential. And quite frankly, nobody wants to live in a house that looks across the street and sees cars being repaired all day long for a good year. Not to mention cars coming in and out of the shopping center, you know, with the Winn-Dixie and what have you. So it's just not ideal for a residential situation. The concept or plan of Mr. Rhymes is to do something very similar to the beatnik, to try to do some significant investment on the property, but he cannot do that with R1 zoning. He's only owned the property since February, so he's really a brand new property owner with that, and is looking to immediately improve the property. He did not renew the lease for the southern lot, and if this rezoning is approved, it is likely that house will come down within the next 30 days. His plans are to move forward as quickly as he can to invest in the property and make it an asset to the community, as opposed to one that is considered a detriment, if I understand correctly. The change in neighborhood character to me is really quite obvious. You've got a brand new clinic that is constructed to the north. I mean, to the south, you've got the Krispy Kreme that had bought a lot, which was 111 Vermont, and it was torn down when the Krispy Kreme expanded. You've got lots to the north that were removed, and lots across the street to the north that were removed as well, because it's not fit on that corridor for residential development in that particular location. So you've seen a change in neighborhood from residential to less residential because of the removal of those homes. I believe that the area to the further north of, especially Iberville, is somewhat sacred. I mean, that's a great neighborhood. I believe Iberville Drive's a great neighborhood, but I do believe that Vermont, near the intersection of Vermont and Highway 90, is not really suited for residential development or residential structures. So the VRBO concept is a plan that Josh has spoken to me about. I think it would work really well there because it does provide a reason to invest, and it's really not very far from downtown. I mean, you can cross 90 and you're basically in downtown right there. So I think it's a very good fit for the community. I think it's a very good fit for the neighborhood. The CMX1 zoning was one that I spoke to Wade about. It would have been very easy to ask for a CH, simply expand the existing zoning that was to the east and take it to this property. But that would have opened up the door for strip malls and strip centers and things that were really not appropriate for this site. So what we did was ask for the bare minimum, the CMX1, which provides us the opportunity to do mixed use office space and some VRBOs on the site. So I think it's a very good zone. It's a good transition because it does not allow what's going on in the shopping center to jump across the street up to the west side of Vermont. So basically we're here today just to ask you to approve this request. I do want to point out that, I do want to make this part of the record, the owner of the property behind us at 1703 Carpenter Circle has indicated he does not oppose our rezoning. So we do know that not everybody in the Carpenter Court is in opposition, and we would love to have you guys approve our request and make this property commercial and allow it to move forward and be an asset to the community and Ocean Springs. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. Josh, property owner, is here as well. He'll be happy to answer any questions, and if you want to hit my daughter up for a question, I'm sure she can try to help you out there too.
I got a question, Jonathan. Remind me, and if there is, what's the buffer between those two properties if it were to get rezoned CMX1?
I believe the use is going to dictate that somewhat, Ricky. If it goes in with the VRBO type use, that's residential nature, you're looking at probably a landscape strip. If it becomes something with parking or a more intense commercial use, that buffer could be increased. Me and Wade really have not talked about that a whole lot, but I do think that we're going to be as unobjectionable as possible to the neighbors to the to our west.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Don.
Sure.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak more against the rezone? Okay, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Hempy,
Second.
second by Mr. Blackman. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a roll call on this.
Motion first.
I thought you had a motion. Need a motion. A motion to approve or deny the application.
How appropriate.
Well, I want to just say, to the Betsy, I really feel, I get a lot of complaints about the way those houses look over there with the trash that gets blown from the Winn-Dixie and all that kind of stuff, and it's never really maintained. And after spending as long as I did on the planning commission, and going through rezonings and people requesting things, I think what they're asking for is really not gonna mess y'all up as far as property wise, especially with the buffers and what they're allowed to do. And again, we're not interested in all kinds of variances, and somebody come back to ask for something different than what they got. So I just want you to know, but I'll make a motion that we accept what the planning commission recommends.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Aldermen.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hempy. Is there any further discussion? Roll call starting with Mr. Aldermen?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes, by 5 ayes, 1 abstention. The next item.
Not if there's absence.
Actually, 1 absent.
So 6.
6. What did I say, 5? No long way. Anyway, next item on the agenda is 1015 LaFontaine Avenue, rezoning to RM2 multiple dwelling district from R1 single family residential district. PID is 60137-482.000. Planning Commission recommended denial. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Black and second by Mr. Cox. Okay, Carolyn, all in favor?
Aye.
Carolyn? Carolyn, you
Yeah.
want to address this?
Yeah, Mr. Morgan's going to provide the detail, but this is, the next two items are for the same property at 1015 LaFontaine. So the first request was for rezoning, which was recommended as a denial from the Planning Commission. So when you are considering this, you will only need to do the roll call if you want to approve and adopt the ordinance to rezone it. But their recommendation was for denial of the rezoning from R1 to RM2. The situation being that there are some legal nonconforming apartments that have been on the property since prior to code adoption. So, Wade, if you want to.
Yeah, this is coming to you with a recommendation for denial from both the Planning Commission and the staff. This situation, as Carolyn mentioned, this is a request to rezone the property from R1 district to the RM2 multifamily district. The property currently contains a 4-unit, single-story apartment building. It was built in the late 1960s. At that time, the zoning of the property allowed apartment buildings on this property. So the apartments were conforming with the zoning effect at that time. In the 1970s, the zoning of the area was changed and the regulations were changed to the R1 district, which make this current apartment building a non-conforming use, which it can continue in that state as long as it can't be expanded, and if it ever was demolished for some reason, cannot be rebuilt as apartments. It would have to be converted to a single family, be developed as a single family dwelling. There are a number of letters in your packet, both I think in favor of and opposed to the rezoning, and also to the following conditional use permit. But the reason for both the staff and the Planning Commission recommendation against the zoning change really goes down to two things. Is one, that the RM2 district is out of character with the surrounding single-family neighborhood. All surrounding properties in the R1 district and consist of dwellings and other uses such as bed and breakfast and accessory dwelling units that are consistent with that R1 zoning district. The nearest similar multifamily district is R1A, and that's the 200 feet to the southeast on the Gulf Oaks condominiums that front on Front Beach. The second reason that this is recommended for denial is that this could be considered spot zoning, in that it's a single parcel and would benefit the owners for use that's incompatible with the surrounding land and also inconsistent with the goals of the comprehensive plan. So with that, as I said, it's a recommendation against the zoning change, and the owner of the property is here. May want to address this, or I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Have any questions for Wade? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against the project rezoning?
Make a motion to come out of the public hearing, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Mr. Empey.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blackman. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there a motion to approve or deny? rezoning.
I'll make a motion to uphold the planning commission denial of the rezoning.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Impey,
Second.
second by Mr. Blackman. All in favor? Anybody? Only if it's approved.
Yeah, only if it's the ordinance, so you need a roll
Only if
call.
it's approved. Any nays? Motion to deny is accepted. Since there's one absent. Okay, the next item on the agenda.
Next one is the
Next
conditional
one
use.
is the same location, 1015 LaFontaine Avenue, request conditional use permit in the R1 Single Family Residential District, PID 6037482.000. Planning Commission recommends approval. Is there a motion to open the public?
Motion to go into public hearing.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Cox, second by Mr. Aldermen. All in favor?
Aye.
Planning, Carolyn?
Yeah, and this one, as Mr. Morgan was describing, it's related to it in the fact that without the rezoning, this conditional use permit would allow the apartments to continue operation. Even if the building was demolished, it could be rebuilt in the same footprint. So it allows them to continue the use, even though it's non-conforming with R1 district. So that's in lieu of the rezoning. He would get this conditional use permit to secure his current activity. If there's any
Yeah,
details.
really not much more to add to what Carolyn said, other than to just emphasize that this is coming to you with a recommendation for approval from the Planning Commission. It was recommended for approval with 5 members voting yes and 1 member abstaining. As Carolyn said, this is the approval of this conditional use permit would allow the apartments to be rebuilt if for some reason they were destroyed by fire, hurricane, some other kind of situation that would cause them to be destroyed more than 50%. Can that conclude what I was going to say about it, or can I answer any?
Have any questions? Away.
So basically, it's a conditional use permit. You're basically grandfathering the activity due to the historical circumstances.
In this
Essentially.
situation, that's correct.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak for or against?
Yes.
Step forward.
I'm Frederick Menino. I'm the owner of the apartments. The conditional use permit application that y'all voting on is to continue the activity. But somehow I think that something was missed on my application, that the goals is short-term rental permits. That's on my application as well. Nobody seems to address it. They all, did y'all see that?
That's what I understood. That's what I understood.
Yeah.
That's the direction you were trying to go, yes.
I didn't realize that, is there another step after this, or
Yeah.
is that, after this, is this, if it's approved, is that it?
Yeah, until we could determine exactly what the nature of the property, if it was going to be rezoned or conditional use, and then we're working with our attorneys to determine how to address a short-term rental application for conditional use. But yes, it would need to go through the short-term rental. Once this got resolved, then we'll have to go through the short-term rental review process, and we just needed to see the outcome of tonight before we knew which way to take that request.
I was under the impression that this use was, the conditional use was that, but I guess it's not. It's a step.
It's got its own process that has to be done separately.
This
Yeah.
is my wife, she wanted to talk to you. Introduce yourself.
My name is Candace Menino. Apartment's been there since 1960. Buildings were built around our apartment. Apparently, y'all have a problem with our apartment. I'd like that in writing. I'd like everything that you disagree with our apartments in writing. We've upheld everything, you know, noise. We've got certain rules. We've got everything. I'm sorry, I'm being emotional. So. But if somebody moves into a neighborhood and wants a bed and breakfast or whatever they want, they seem to get these permits. Why don't we get a permit like everybody else?
Will, when you apply for it, will, it's entirely two different issues.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I'm confused because I see that you've got all of these different housing situations that, you know, somebody can have free, you know, long-term rentals or a long-term rental here, there, and whatever. It's just a mishmash of confusion to me. Whether you like the building or not, we've been trying to improve it as much as possible and continue. And I just want it in writing that, you know, what's the problem? I mean, we've been there longer. If the homeowners have a problem with it, maybe they should have done their research, don't you think? It's upsetting because it was his father built it. Hey, we could see the Gulf of Mexico from where we were until it rolled around us. But we put our heart and our soul into that building, and we'd like to have the same, you know, the same rights as everybody else around us. Down Dewey, you have many bed and breakfasts, short-term rentals. I know you're mad at me, but you know what? I'm really this doesn't make sense to me because Ocean Springs is a place where people come to visit, and it's become a mishmash of, okay, you can have a house here, you can have a house here, and you can have a B&B, but your house, your place doesn't fit. So what is it going to take to make our place fit into your you know, idea of what Ocean Springs is? You know, I mean, I'm an artist. I've done the art show for over, I don't know, since it became an art show. I've never known this Ocean Springs like this. It's completely topsy-turvy. You've got bed and breakfast everywhere. So that's all I have to say. I'm upset. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to say for the record, I haven't heard anybody on this board say anything negative about the building or its location or for what it is. I do think that this board has a concern for what Wade said earlier, that it could be considered spot zoning, and we'd be basically catering to you only in that situation. And even when I was on the planning commission, I mean, spot zoning has always been a big topic of discussion when people ask for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, all the ones that you're referring to on Dewey and all those other places, I think that's special use. That's not.
All of them went through the process.
Right.
Through their own process, public hearing on every single one of them. So
I think you're headed in the right
Yeah.
direction. This is just the next step you need to go through to get to, you know, to hopefully get to what you're trying to achieve. But I can assure you, nobody on this board called me and said anything about your buildings.
Well,
I didn't like them.
I'm just saying, I guess I'm special, I can read between the lines. So, I thank you, Paul. I don't agree with what's going on. I think Ocean Springs has now become a mishmash of a wonderful place. It's an awesome place to be. I've always spoken highly of it as being an artist. You know, my family loves it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm emotional. Been a lot of time working on it, and have a great evening.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against the zone? Need a motion?
I'd make the motion to come out of public hearing, Mayor.
Got a motion by
Second.
Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Alderman, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have a motion that we take the planning commission's, recommendations for approval of the conditional use permit.
Motion by Mr.
Second.
Alderman, second by Mr. Cox. Do a roll call.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
That'll be effective in 30 days.
Effective in 30 days. Thank you.
That's it, yeah, it's 30.
No, it's just anything that's not an emergency is usually.
Oh, I thought it was unanimous.
It could be, but it's usually, yeah.
It's not a unanimous.
It's not a full board.
Otherwise, my question was because Jennifer's not here.
Correct.
Yes, right.
Okay, the next item was Savannah Estates Phase 2. Preliminary plat approval has been tabled to be re-advertised. Next item on the agenda is agenda public comment. The public is invited to address the board for up to 3 minutes each, for a maximum of 30 minutes, only regarding issues listed on this agenda. Please identify yourself and the agenda item you are discussing. If you have something to say about an agenda item to the board, you may step forward now.
It's been a while. Bill Moore.
Bill?
Yeah. I just wanted to, a couple thanks, and, because I know it was, Public Works Week, and just, I think, on behalf of the chamber and the city and all you do for us, it's just, we couldn't do what we do without you guys, and so thank you very, very much for the chamber and the board. And then I just wanted to put all the good work that the pet therapy people do out at our hospital. It's phenomenal for the patients. The blood pressure drops, everything's good. Their blood sugar is better. It's amazing what they do, and it's great for the staff because, particularly during COVID, they came in some, and you can imagine it's a great stress relief to see a dog wagging his tail and thumping against the thing. Maybe you can give him your gavel and scare me. But anyhow, if anybody gets the opportunity to support that group, it's well worth your effort and money and time. So thanks.
I agree with you. Thank you.
Oh, and then Bobby, second year in a row you won the burger competition? You got the lower.
We'll talk about that one later. Anyone else who would like to speak to an agenda item? Okay. Moving on to old business, Historic Ocean Springs Association is here to give us an update on the Porter Avenue community conversations project.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Susan Gulledge, and I'm president of the Historic Ocean Springs Association. We are pleased to present the final report from our Jose Porter Avenue Community Conversations project. We delivered the printed reports to you all last week, and you may have had an opportunity to have some familiarity with its content prior to today's meeting. With me here tonight are members from our Jose board who served as members of the task force. We have Peggy Stowers, we have Melanie Allen, Catherine Shanks, Michael Goodwin, and his wife Dawn. The goal of this long project has always been this moment right here as we present the document to you. Jose hopes that the city will see the value in using the document as a resource as you consider development requests and planned improvements along Porter Avenue, especially from the area between Biloxi Ocean Springs Bridge to Dewey right here at City Hall. Jose Group was planning the Porter Avenue community project at the time before COVID, and though we were delayed, we finally were able to proceed with ongoing organizing 3 community public conversational meetings with the stakeholders in the Porter Avenue area. These took place between July and October of 2021. The content of this report is built from the comments and the suggestions of the residents and the stakeholders who are financially and emotionally invested along Porter Avenue and the surrounding area. And we are absolutely delighted that more than 123 individuals participated in the process with us. This was an expensive, time-consuming project for Jose. It was a big investment of the funds for us to contract with a professional team at the Gulf Coast Community Design Studio. They are an arm of the Mississippi State Architecture and Landscape programs. But we were very glad that we did that. Dr. Perks and Tracy Wyman did an outstanding job facilitating and documenting these community conversations, and we really appreciate them and all the work that they provided. Our project co-chairs for this project are Mickey Williams, Catherine Shanks, Jesse Zenor, and Melanie Allen. And at this time, Melanie will walk you through the framework of the report. Thank you.
Hey friends, how's everybody? We're very excited to be presenting this report today. It's an extensive report. I'm going to go through it very quickly. I am not going to read you this document. I have a pet peeve when you go to a meeting and people read you what they've got on the screen, so we're not going to do that. Our project...
Can you tell Donovan Scruggs about that next time? I kid. I'm sorry.
I'm going to turn that a little bit there, Rob, and I'm going to say I cannot believe that I've known Donovan long enough for that to be his daughter, because she was a baby when we first knew her. Yeah. She's a beautiful young woman.
Make that for Daddy.
I'm not commenting on that one either, Donovan. Our project team were the members of Jose, as Susan said, and the Gulf Coast Community Design Studio. We had not only our team of our task force, but we had a project advisory team. And you'll recognize some of the names on this team. Fred Moran, Hank Zuber, Ricky Audemont, Roxy and Ted Condre, Joe Cloyd, Jan Humes, Kate Sukanek, Sonia Cowart, Dennis Cowart, and our late friend Larry Cosper. We also thank Harriet Perry and Dr. Michael Weems for being part of it. We owe a great deal of thanks to Carolyn and Wade for helping us mold this project from the very beginning. We're looking forward to having a presentation with them in detail next week. We thank St. Paul's United Methodist Church, St. John's, and the Mary C. for letting us meet. And we thank Dr. Mark LaSalle, David Minkler, arborists, Liz Elmore of the Osprey Group, which I know you all have worked with, and Nancy Wilson of the Environmental Alliance. Raven's going to do a good job and walk us through this. There's a timeline in here, and on the timeline, I want to point out one thing, and this relates to July of 1999. And back then, Fred Moran and John Blossman and Larry Cosper got together with a similar program, and they approached Mississippi State back then and had a group of architecture students come down and bring fresh eyes to look at Ocean Springs and make recommendations. And from that came Cache Alley. And so we thought, we all know that Porter Avenue is changing, growing. We want to encourage that. But we want to envision a future where the city and the community work together and work together to maintain the character of Porter while embracing creativity, growth, and change. So we did, as Susan said, we've had a lot of advisory meetings, planning meetings, and we had 3 community conversations last year. We focused on the Old Ocean Springs Historic District area, which runs along Porter. We sent out notices of our meetings to the folks not only who lived along Porter from the bridge to Dewey, but a block each way, because we know what happens on Porter influences and affects everybody in the area. Are you going to help over there, Susan? I'm on page 13 if it helps you. We had a map where we had folks who participated in the program mark where they lived. And you'll see when we get to that page that a lot of the folks participated who lived in that area. We know that the city is engaging in some other relevant projects that will dovetail with this. And it is your downtown parking and traffic study. And we know that will influence change and growth, including on Porter. Jose also listened to folks during our meetings who said they want to know more about the community. They want to know more of the stories of the historic area. So we have, I'm on page 14 now, Susan. We have also funded an interpretive signage project. We sat down with the mayor a couple of weeks ago and went through some of those. We are looking forward to placing probably the first of those signs, Cynthia, at the chamber next week. So we're really looking forward to that. We have 42 interpretive signs to go around town. We know that the city is looking to do improvements for our western gateway at the bridge. But mostly what we wanted was a community-driven process. It is not because of anything we're doing wrong. It's because we're growing so fast that we know that the best future for Ocean Springs involves the city and the community working together. So our primary goals were to create our goals, the three goals of this project would be to work together with the community to create people-friendly places that foster creativity, inspiration, learning, and a sense of community. We also heard that we should consider the area's historic past while innovating a vibrant and well-functioning corridor that aligns with its residential character. One thing about Porter Avenue is from the very beginning, it's been a mixed use from the very beginning. It's always had residential and commercial mixed together. And our third point, which is really very important to me, is we know is how hard you all work to engage the community. And we wanted to come up with a process that could be replicated as you look at other areas of the community. It's the process that is so important to me, not just the result of this, because what we've given you is a way to have a constructive conversation. I've known many of you for years. Many times when a citizen comes to City Hall, it's because they're upset about something. We should be talking when we're not that upset. We want to encourage that process. After each meeting that we had, we went through and sat down with our advisory groups, and we processed what was said, and we morphed it a little bit to be more responsive. I'm on page 20 now. Our first meeting, each of the three workshops had a different scope of looking. We had 68 people come to the first workshop, and it was about getting the conversation started. And it was a way to discover what parts of our community look complete or incomplete. Parts that have enough lighting, enough landscaping, sidewalks, art. We went through processes in that group, large and small processes. And we've detailed this in this report. I'm not going to go through all of that with you. But again, the purpose was to achieve a vision that met all the needs of that neighborhood, that was willing to grow and respect growth and change and creativity, but that also would be respectful of the character and the historic fiber of the area. Our project timeline, we went through meeting one. Our second meeting, we discussed public space. We used surveys during the meeting. We had cute little handheld things where people could answer questions and give their input. We had social media questions, which we compiled, and the information is in here. What we did in each level of this group, of this report, each level that we did from workshop 1 through 3, was to ask questions, gather the data, go back and look at it compared to what we learned before, change what we were going to do in the next meeting to be responsive, and we're very proud of what we came up with. What we did learn as well is that there is a real need and a desire for community education. with regard to what the processes are at City Hall. And that's hard to do, but it's needed to be done because there's a need for education as much as regulation. And the more education we feel we do and explain and talk to people about what the processes are that they can expect as change comes or as they want change in their neighborhood. They have to know the process to go through. So we've given you in each area, when it looked at lighting, we've given you answers from folks in the meetings, what they like. Everyone knows we want more lighting. But we've given you their answers as to how that can be done, what their choices are, what their preferences are. We also want to recommend, because it's unique in the historic areas, we've got 8 designated local historic areas in Ocean Springs. Porter's the first one that we've looked at. But these historic areas don't have homeowners associations like many of the subdivisions do in other areas around town. We want to recommend that groups like ours, perhaps the Chamber as well, that we work with the city in some way of helping to encourage the organization of essentially homeowners associations in these historic districts. It would not be structured with the limitations and restrictions of covenants in a homeowners association. But it could promote that conversation, that communications amongst people, so that we know, again, what that neighborhood wants, what that neighborhood is willing to compromise about, what they're not willing to compromise about, and work together so that, excuse me, Wade and Carolyn, when people come to see them, they know the process they're looking forward to being part of in order to get the result they need. All of this is built on the foundation of communication. We learned that people can disagree in a meeting and have it be constructive. That sounds so simple, but I know I'm looking at you all and you know that's not always the case. We get to talk to each other when we're already mad. Again, we learned that the process is as important as the findings. So the areas that we looked at, and I'm just about done here, was in our first workshop, the community overwhelmingly desired a corridor that reflects local character. They're going through here. We did an inventory of all the buildings on Porter on both sides, all the way from the bridge to City Hall. Everyone wants this corridor to reflect a local character that's unique and that allows for artistic creativity while maintaining a balance of the original residential and business properties. We've got a page of findings on that subject. Our second one was on the streetscape and public right-of-way. Again, we looked at ways to prioritize the elements that will make a safe, welcoming, and beautiful, vibrant corridor that is respectful of the natural resources. Landscaping, lighting, walkability, parking, art, storytelling, communication in public places. These were all things that we heard community wants. And then we talked about neighborhood character and growth. And again, that's where I'm saying it's so important if we can all know what the process is that's required by the city before the process starts. Some of the other topics that were brought up considerably during the meetings, which I know the city is addressing in other ways. The issue of homelessness, the issue of stormwater and drainage, and the issue, which we all want to see, which is underground utilities. It's everybody's wish list. So I want to say thank you to you for accepting this report from us. This was a huge investment for our little group. And even though we've done a lot in 30 years, this was a change for us. This it represents a morph in us, just as the city is changing and growing. and we want to encourage creativity, that unique vibe that is Ocean Springs. At the same time, being respectful of what we have been and carrying that forward to the future. So we offer you this report. We're very grateful for you to accept it. We look forward to having some continued conversations. We hope this becomes a resource not only for Carolyn's department, but for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I want to personally thank you on behalf of the city, because I know what a massive undertaking this was. And I was able to sit in on a meeting at the Mary C. and also another one at St. Paul, and it was really good. And it dovetails well because we have a comprehensive plan that's going on right now. This information we will present along with the traffic plan to the planners who are doing the comprehensive plan and make it a part of that document also. And being that I live on Porter, I want to personally thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
Just ask if we can get at least an email copy of that, so.
I brought a hard copy last week for each one of you. But we are,
Oh, right here, yeah, pick it up, okay. It's under the staff.
Alderman, and we are also going to be posting this. We have a new Jose website that's going up, and we'll be posting that link, so it will be public knowledge.
Okay, great. Well, we can share that on the city website. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you again. Next item on the agenda is new business. As you are aware, the medical marijuana bill passed the legislature. The governor signed off on it. Both referendums locally passed by 76, 77%. So I asked Carolyn and Wade to prepare some information for us to go through with the board, and then I'm sure there'll be questions. And just kind of the first step in the process of where Ocean Springs is headed with medical marijuana. So, Carolyn.
And just the information that you have in your packet was just some of the thoughts and the things that we wanted to point out to you as far as how we would approach addressing the code or making any changes to the code to allow for what's been approved in the referendum. So if there's any questions on that, all we want to do tonight is to present that to you along with the map that is in your packet that shows the required buffers. Those buffers are what comes out of the state law, and we've just applied them to the types of businesses so that you can see how they would be impacted. The buffers indicate where either a dispensary or a cultivation location can be from either a church, school, daycare, those types of activities. So we've drawn the proper buffer around those locations, which effectively excludes those types of activities from a great deal, especially of the downtown area. So we would be able to have that as a resource when people call, wanting to know where things are eligible. But we do want to get input from you all so that we can work on developing how our code would be modified to address the types, the dispensaries, the cultivation, the research as spelled out in the state statutes, with which also provide very good and clear definitions, which would be incorporated into our code as well. So really tonight is just to kind of give you that update, to let you know, as the mayor said, this is where we are, and we'll be working on that ordinance for its own public hearing. If there's any questions
How far out are we?
We could have that. I mean, if you provide us some input, we can advertise it, I believe, for the June. We were aiming for the June meeting.
Right, just depending on what type of input we get from y'all. Our idea was to put the amendments together for the June Planning Commission meeting, and then on to y'all, well, depending on what the Planning Commission does, we'll keep coming to y'all for another public hearing after that.
I guess the only thing that I've had phone calls about is people are asking me, or investors are asking me, they're going to get their permits from the city of Ocean Springs, and they get their permit from the state of Mississippi.
As we understand it, it'll work similar to a lot of other industries. You have to get your state certification, and then we can say, then we'll be working on the code to say how and where, what zoning districts it can be used, and if there's any additional restrictions. So both. Which comes first is something we're trying to sort out as well. But many other businesses, restaurants being the same, just an easy example, have to have all their state certifications, and we just say, yes, this is an eligible location for a restaurant. It would work very similar in the fact that we could say what properties you could conduct that business, but you would have to have your state certifications in order to be eligible.
So we have reached out to other cities to see where they are in the process, to see if we could see how they're approaching this, and basically what they're wanting to do is see how we're approaching it.
Yeah.
So,
Everybody wants to
taking the lead on this.
Yeah.
Carolyn, talk a little bit about signage, facades, stuff like that.
As with any business, whatever type, whether it's a dispensary or cultivation, would have to go through, if it's new construction, would have to go through design review, just like any other business. So all existing building code, design codes, including signage, would apply to these businesses as any other. As far as signage, we regulate, obviously, size, materials, location, quantity of signs. We do not regulate content. I mean, that's not something that we are authorized, but I understand that the state law does provide some restrictions on content for these types of businesses, and those would have to be followed.
That's our ordinance, though, right? If it's a state.
As with many businesses, it would refer to, in addition to whatever is applied, whatever's required by the state.
I mean, one of the things we're thinking of is that we would take the definitions of the different types of cannabis facilities, growing facilities, dispensaries, research, and incorporate those same definitions into our Unified Development Code. That way there's, consistency from the state down to the local level. And as Carol mentioned, the state law gives the state of Mississippi some fairly thorough authority over the signage of what type of signs are allowed there. There's certainly, we could incorporate those same regulations into our own code so that it does give the building department and code enforcement the teeth to deal with it on a local level too, not just at the state level. So that's the type of things that we are looking for from.
Yeah, I can tell you what the issues are going to be. As soon as it opens, there are going to be a lot of banners and a lot of feather flags that are going to happen.
And banners and feather flags are a problem for all businesses, and they would be handled with these businesses the same way that we would with any other business. And the state regulations would be on top of that. So in addition to whatever we would need to enforce as far as feather flags, I know it's Daryl's favorite, and when people apply for signs, they still have to be within the right sign for their size for their location and height. In addition to that, whatever the state is restricting would be considered. So we essentially, their regulations are stricter than when it comes to certain elements of signage and construction and site location, and we defer to their requirements. They obviously would trump us as typical, but we would incorporate as much from the state laws as we can, either directly into verbatim into the code, or it would reference back whatever the current state law is would prevail. So we're fine tuning how that would actually look in as far as the verbiage and the details of how it would be incorporated. But the state legislation really took care of a lot of the concerns that we had, and leaves us primarily with determining the zoning districts where the different types of activities would be eligible and any additional restrictions that may or may not be necessary. But these buffers that they've outlined, that's typically what we've done with other similar type activities that had concern. We've put buffers, lounges have the buffer, A lot of those things have the same similar buffer. They've already done that for us. All we have to do is put them on the map. And so it really kind of did make our job a little easier as far as that's concerned. But we're going through the state legislation, make sure that any of those fine points are incorporated into ours, and we'll work with the legal on making sure that we incorporate them properly. And any input that you all have, like on signs or any other concerns, we can either make sure that it's addressed properly in the state level and refer to it, or make sure that it gets incorporated in ours before we bring it to the Planning Commission.
Ricky, there are some limits, though. We can take on signage, for example, what the state tells us, and they have information in there, and incorporate it and make it in addition to what any other business in Ocean Springs does. But we can't go out and create new things just for the dispensary that other businesses don't have. So we are limited across the board on that, is that we can't come in and create special qualifications or requirements just because it's a medical marijuana facility.
Make some changes to that anyway, so.
I'm curious to know how the police department is going to handle that kind of stuff, as far as like driving and all that kind of stuff.
No idea yet, we're waiting on the legislation.
Yeah, that's not
Surely you
mine.
can't drive and just pull out a prescription, right?
Well, I know that they don't allow drive-throughs. They don't drive. The dispensaries can't have drive-through. I think that's one of the elements that they built in there. So, I think so. I might be mistaken. I know it was discussed, but
I don't think so.
I think that's on there.
There's a lot of things that we need to flesh out on this.
The legislation is 400 pages long, so it's
Yeah, we're still working through it.
That's why
And I'm sure, and I'm hoping, and we'll make a request at MML. We have some breakout sessions at MML that will kind of clear up some of this stuff.
But any input, it would be, if you have some questions or whatever, just email them directly to us, and we'll kind of cobble that together along with the things that we're already looking into, so that we can make sure we address everyone's concern in the whatever draft we're able to pull together. And like I said, June is the next opportunity, as long as we have a draft ready by the time we have to advertise it.
What zones, areas of the city would the cultivation manufacturer be allowed in?
Industrial is what the state has outlined.
So that would be used more conducive to the county areas than.
We don't have a lot of industrially zoned properties.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's kind of the lighter tan color there, primarily along the railroad.
Yep.
Is where most of them are located.
Industrial Park Circle. There's a few little pockets, and of those, very few are undeveloped. So not a ton of opportunity.
Yeah, we don't think we have any agricultural zones.
We have no agricultural zones, so we're good.
That puts the bulk of it squarely in Ward 5.
Right. Anybody have any other questions?
One last thing I would like to see on the map, just a different overlay that shows those areas, just those areas, and the buffers around those areas.
Okay.
Just another layer that we can take out and show.
Just kind of take out some of the clutter and.
Correct, right. It's
Okay.
so cluttered right now. I get a headache.
Well, and also that's the whole city, so.
You can zoom in on it very easily.
But
Yeah.
I would like to see a layer of the whole city, just like this, and highlight the allowable areas and just the buffers around those areas, not the entire city.
We'll simplify it, and maybe by ward, just so that it's easier to look at. Yeah.
Anyway, thank y'all for your work. I know this is, stages, but we'll keep digging through it. Anybody have anything they would like to remove from the consent agenda?
I'd like to make a motion, we approve the consent agenda, Mayor.
Got a motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Wade. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Moving on to department reports, city clerk. Does anyone have anything to pull from the docket of claims?
I'll make a motion to approve docket 20 years made, Mr. Mayor, all expenditures are appropriate and authorized by law. Second.
By Mr. Impey, second by Mr. Blatton. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Anybody have anything, questions about the monthly budget report?
I'll make a motion to approve the monthly budget report.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Impey, second by Mr. Cox. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item on the agenda is authorize the sewer adjustment of water sewer accounts due to the finding that the customer did not receive the benefit of the utility in the excess usages or due to unforeseen circumstances. Do we have any questions on sewer adjustments?
Is this the one we asked the owner to be here?
Yep.
Yes, so I had Sarah talk to Eddie, and Vicki investigated it. And when Bobby came in, Sarah, could you explain a little bit about what Eddie told you?
Which one is this one?
This is the dental.
Okay, the dental. So apparently the dental, it has a 2-inch service, and its regular use is right under 1,000 gallons a day. And from December, the only thing I didn't clarify with the water department is if they notified them in December. But from December to about a month, it was like December 16th to about January 14th, it used about 10,000 gallons a day. So it was a pretty steady leak. Well, then it finally busted or broke up about the 16th, and it jumped to, I want to say 50,000.
That graph you had last time looked like 3 months. I
Yeah,
just
and
remember
it
that.
wasn't.
Remember? Well, this graph will show you it's actually in 2 billing periods. And as soon as they knew they had a leak, if you keep going, I think they contacted us and they started working to fix it. But I don't know if that was on the weekend, that 2-inch main busted, but it all went down through the ditch. And they paid for every bit of that water. They had contacted, I think if she keeps going, you'll say that they were in contact with the water department the entire time.
So stop
somehow
right there.
we didn't get that across last time.
Yeah. So the 12th it broke pretty excessively, which is 72,000 gallons. Well, it was fixed. Well, the next day it broke again in a separate location, because my first initial thought was if it broke in the same location, the plumber needs to pick up the next half of the bill. But it didn't. It broke in a different location. It was fully, basically full capacity. It was wide open. And that's where you see the 167,000 gallons in that one day. So after they fixed it, obviously there's some flushing they got to do, so it goes back to, a couple, what is that, 1,200, 1,600, and after that it drops back to about 1,000 gallons a day average. So really the excessive amount from December, when it was a kind of a consistent leak where it jumped to 10,000 gallons a day, to the time it broke is half of what you're asking to be reduced, and then the other half was in the one day that it fully broke.
Once we looked into it further and we looked at all the graphs and we talked to Eddie, they had been in total communication. That's why they did not have them come in. Vicki sent this all to you all again to tell you that if y'all wanted to speak to them. But I told the water department that graph looked like 3 months, which really confused everybody.
Vicki sent this to us. She sent this to us and explained it pretty well.
Yeah.
And I just want to make a motion. We go ahead and authorize the sewer adjustment. I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Pena. Any further discussion?
Well, I was going to say in the future, I was going to have Sarah kind of talk to Eddie too, since she might can communicate a little bit better than what.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next item on the agenda is general public comment. Public is invited to address the board for up to 3 minutes each for a maximum of 30 minutes. Only 2 speakers will be allowed to speak on each side of an issue. This is comments about city business. If you would like to address the board, please step forward, identify yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hey, Bill Moore. So this is about me as a homeowner of 257 Holcomb Boulevard. I don't know what the city has planned. They just put up a new phone pole, an electric pole, which is actually, I think, Ward 4 because it's on the opposite side of the street.
2 feet in Ward 4.
So I'm hopeful that, I mean, light pollution is a real thing. There's a very bright LED light already at 256 Holcomb, another one at 240. I don't know whether y'all are planning to put a light there or not, but
Doc, I don't think, we're not, that's, in my
it popped up
understanding,
all of a sudden.
my understanding, Mississippi Power is just replacing bad poles. I have no other further knowledge. They don't contact us with their construction work. And I know exactly where you're talking about. I saw the pole.
I want to be able to see the stars at night, stuff
Well,
like that, and then
if,
still have plenty
if
of
they-
lights to
if they-
safely walk in.
I would definitely contact them and ask them what
Okay,
they're
so
doing. You'll get a better response than I will.
I just know it was a pole replacement. They didn't have anything about doing new construction.
That's my looking at it, and my estimate is they're just replacing a bad pole.
Good news.
I just never know.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, next item on the agenda is mayor and alderman forum. Usually we go with the alderman first, but I'm going to take the privileges and go with my report first. Because we have Mr. Scott Lemon, our insurance provider here, and he's been bearing through all this meeting with us, and I'm sure he's just getting back from Atlanta and like to get home, so I'm going to go ahead and have you come forward right now, Scott.
Thank you, Ken.
I'll let Dr. Moore do this as soon as he is there. Hey, thank y'all for having me, and really this is an update of where we are, and an update on the market, and then try to create some expectations for going forward. The property and the auto insurance renews at the end of May, so we're in the last 30 days of this. Unfortunately, with inflation, with tight market structures, with we're seeing the insurance market really kind of readjust. Our last 2 large accounts have gone into the last week of the month, so that's really kind of what I'm expecting to happen here. We met in February with the mayor and Bobby and Mindy and Mike, and really kind of start talking about where the market was and the program. Mindy worked over the next month and a half on the schedule of values, getting a lot of pressure for valuations. We increased the city's schedule of values from about 34 million to about 41 million, so 15-20%. And if you look at inflation, building costs, that's really kind of right in line with keeping us on track with what the market expects. We did take some value increases last year. I think that's really kind of what hedged us and helped us as we got in the marketplace. The city is written with a carrier called AmRisk, and AmRisk is about 8 or so carriers put together that share the capacity for this. AmRisk wrote about $2 billion going in this year, and they decided they want to cut that to $1 billion. So they're really kind of shedding a lot of capacity and so forth. So we'll probably see them participate, and as we have with other large schedules, we'll see other carriers come in and fill up the capacity to cover the $41 million of exposure the city has. But really all we're going to be able to do is go through this process and make decisions that make sense based on what your budget is, what your spend is. I would venture to say that our $40,000 deductible that we've been able to buy and afford over the last 10 years is probably going to be unaffordable. We'll look at those options, and we hope we even have those options. We've seen the market come back and say, hey, we're just going to give you a 3% deductible or 5% deductible. But over the next couple of weeks, we'll be in tight communication to kind of make decisions as we process this. It's just become where we are and who we are to see things happen in that last month. We had many years that we approved it in this first board meeting of the month. It's just not where the market is right now. So, other comments, thoughts, concerns?
Thank you. We gave you a good goal to try to beat anyway.
Yeah. So, as I've shared with some other large municipalities, we're going to do the same thing in this market cycle as we do in other market cycles. We're going to set goals. We're going to broker out to different competing companies and try to come back with some options and see what we can skin out in terms and conditions. So, but I'll be working mostly through Mindy to coordinate with y'all.
What has been the average increase on those other municipalities?
So
I know it's increased.
That's a good question. We saw anywhere from 20 to 25%. We saw 20 to 30%, and what some of them did was bought down lower limits, or from the top end they were $150 million schedules, and then some of them just took the deductible, a 2% deductible versus having a buyback, and that was on one of them. That was like $100,000 worth of spend. So.
That still resulted in this that percent increase.
Yeah. It went from about 28 when they gave up that deductible. It got them down to about 19. So it was
not a favorable market.
Yeah. Well, it really is kind of interesting. Just because carriers that wrote $20 million of coverage on a big schedule are now just saying, hey, I only want to write 10 and I want the same price I got for 20. So, yeah. But we'll walk through this with us and make decisions here probably the last week of the month to finalize. Y'all reach out and call me if I can help.
Oh yeah, thank you, Brian.
Thanks. Start to schedule some discussions.
Sure, I have to have a special call at the end of the month.
So this past weekend, we had Budweiser and Burgers and Budweiser. A nice event. I don't think I want to eat another burger for quite a while. And let the record show that we did not know whose burger we were eating. They had a number, and the chamber were the only one that knew what burger we were eating. Mr. Blackman backed out at the last minute, and I understand Mr. Wade. Mr. Wade was not. I know he was not there, but he's trying to take credit for Alderman Cox's victory.
Yeah, I got to break in right there, Mayor. Bobby was just in the way. Okay. Mr. Wade did prep everything and had it ready, and the rest of the team put it in place, and I was just there in the way.
It looked like Laurie was driving the train.
No, it was a lot of fun, great event. Cynthia, thank y'all very much.
And if I can say, we had almost 500 people attend for the first year ever event. So it was a really, really cool event. And like Kenny said, 2 teams weren't able to be there, but we had 8 teams that showed up, and I think for the first year for us having that, it was a pretty successful event.
It was fantastic.
So Rob made the top 2 not show up?
Yeah.
A couple of items of note also. The county yesterday approved up to $600,000, which would be a match.
I saw it on WOX.
On the Fayard property. And the county is also working on a beach vendor ordinance that they will be communicating with us on some kind of regulation on some of this stuff that's popping up on our beaches. So anyway, that concludes my announcements. Ricky, your next one.
I only have one thing. I have some folks from the downtown that wanted to turn in a special event permit, trying to do something on the 10th for the loss of Carl in the downtown. And I understand today in talking to you guys that there's some legal issues with that. So do y'all want to get up and talk first, or you want to hear from?
We can listen to you guys first, and then we can go up there.
Ricky, if I can address that, thank you. The city of Ocean Springs is limited in what it can do under its police powers. under police powers, we have the right to regulate traffic, safety, law enforcement, but we're limited. We can't do anything we want. I know the mayor, I don't know if we ever bring them to the board, but once a month gets a call from someone wanting to have a block party and close the street off. And so it comes to us, and I look at the law in Mississippi, and the Attorney General in Mississippi interpreting what the city can do and can't do under its police powers has addressed for at least 32 years the issue of closing streets. And basically, there's a lot, I could quote you the Attorney General opinions, but basically it says let me quote. It says that you can temporarily close a street for a public purpose, but it truly has to be an all public purpose. And the two examples they give are parades and city festivals. It then goes on, the Attorney General says, absent exigent circumstances, we do not find authority for a municipality to regularly prohibit the use of public street at night by some citizens while allowing its use by others. So the long and short of this, what we've been doing for a long time here is when you ask my opinion, I say on things like this that we do not have the authority, whether we want, even if we want to do it, we don't have the authority to close a public street for an activity such as this. We just simply don't have the authority.
My name is Christina Jackson. I'm the shop manager at Twisted Anchor Tattoo, and one of the prime kind of caretakers over Carl, including Warren. First, I would just like to say thank you for talking to us and taking the time out to speak to us about this, especially when it's not as important as a lot of the other issues that have been brought up tonight. I don't want it to seem like that is the case. However, this is something that I do want to do, and I would like to go about it the right way instead of just gathering a group together and getting them downtown and it causing an interference in any way later on. So, I mean, it's not a parade. I know that that is part of it. It is totally just a walking celebration of life that we're wanting to do, predominantly for the families and the children that have been really, really upset over this. Our entire front of our porch is covered in paintings and drawings and stuff from them since this has all happened. I don't think that this is something that any parent really wants to explain to their child, that this kind of evil actually lives out in the world. So I'm hoping for this to be a way for us to kind of heal as a community. I think it's pretty obvious that most of the citizens of Ocean Springs are upset by this and want some kind of celebration. I thought that this would be the best route to kind of go, as it wouldn't be, which I guess it is a special event, but not an entire special event where we're taking up a numerous amount of time. I proposed originally for us to start at Little Market, come down onto Government, turn onto State Street, and then down to DeSoto to come back behind the shop where we would end. That way we were only on Government Street for that short amount of time. If the issue is the issue of the road closures, then we would kind of like to propose for us to be able to maybe do this on the sidewalk, so we could still have this, the event could still happen, we could still bring kind of people together, but then not have to worry about OSPD or any of them having to necessarily be out there for road closures and traffic.
As long as we can't close the roads, I'll just say, in my opinion, if you ask me, no, we do not have the authority to close the roads, and we could be in a liability situation. The sidewalks or something like that, I would have to. I did not look at those statutes, but I presume we're not closing the sidewalks. I would turn to Mark on. Okay. I don't. I would presume that we can't block off a sidewalk any more than we can block off a road, but if you're just walking down it or whatever, but I don't think we can close sidewalks like
Robert, what if we close Cash Alley just for that one, so that they can have like their whole little like view, like the front of their property, the private property, the front and the back, and then just have Cash Alley, since Cash Alley is really closed, I mean, we're in the process of closing it, and just for that period of time, what about that?
Yeah, I think the principle applies no matter what street it is,
Okay.
whether it's the alley or whether it's wherever. So my answer would be the same, because it's just that principle of not being able to close a public street for a private purpose.
Okay.
When is the street closing actually?
Hold on a second.
Yeah. Mayor, when is Cash Alley going to be?
Cash Alley is closed currently, but we have voted to close it, but we have not put the ballot up.
And those are pending the restaurant that's going there is gonna need to have access to the side of that building. So the ballards are not really easy to move. I mean, if you wanna opt to put some of the ones we took off the beach down there till that construction gets done.
We got them.
We've got the metal bollards there on the government street, but not the other part.
We don't have
Yeah, we might be able to make brackets that the balls will fit
We've
on.
already got brackets in the concrete, don't we?
Yeah, the
Just that government, right?
Yeah, just a
government.
Yeah, we don't have it at
Put a gate up on the Cash Alley. But that's something you want to research that?
Yeah,
and get
I'll
back
look
to
at
us?
that if we're talking about that alley is already closed. I remember the conversations we had back in July on that. I'll look back at that and I will get something out rather quickly.
And you don't think that that is going to be an issue for us to start from Little Market to even just cross over government into Cash Alley? Because I mean, even still at that point, we're still going to have to cross.
I think you have to be mindful of traffic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Robert, what he's saying is that we cannot, close off the streets. And I guess it would be just like anybody else crossing a street. Traffic is going to have the right of way. So that's something Robert's going to have to look at also.
Yeah, I'll look at that. It's the whole key on all this is treating everyone exactly the same, and that's what, like on these block parties, I almost, well, I know our response has been the same every time. It's because once you get on the other way, you get on slippery slope. So.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
How many people are y'all expecting?
I don't know. So, I mean, genuinely, I have not put it out there because I wanted to be able to go about it this way first. I imagine that it'll probably be a large number of people, but me even roughly trying to give you an estimate would just be a lie at this point because I really don't know.
Okay. Do either one of the chiefs have anything about public safety or anything?
My main concern from the police department right now is that we're 7 days out from this. And this is the end of the first quarter is a shift change time. This is a time when we have a lot of people taking vacations. We have a lot of people in school because it's middle of the budget year. It's the time that you spend money on training. And I have a lot of people in the academy, and I don't like to discuss my personnel numbers, but we're short. So my issue right now is that 7 days from now is kind of close.
Right.
But as far as closing streets and so forth. And I do have one public safety concern that came to me late today, and I don't know, I haven't had a chance to really research it deeply, but my intel analyst tells me that there are some really stupid people out there wanting to come down and do stupid stuff. And that's just, I can't stand that. Not y'all, but other people. So I don't want people that want to do something nice getting confronted by this. But really, my opinion doesn't matter because we've gone over this numerous times with, even in my own neighborhood, wanting to do a block party, and I couldn't do it. So I don't know what Chief McCoy did.
Yeah, my sentiment's pretty much the same. You know, I was talking about it with my staff today. We're running short too. So, I mean, the notice, I was thinking, you know, as far as like being an event, not a whole lot of time to plan for it. Other than that, you know, I don't really have any other comment other than I do have concern about specifically different types of crowds. You know, this is a passionate issue.
Right.
So, you know, you're going to invite people that you might not are expecting to be there. So that's my concern.
Or do you have anything?
But I just wanted to explain the idea of, like, this wasn't our idea. People came to us like, hey, I don't know if I can speak for her, but like, we're drained from this. Like, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of messages, texts, people coming to our shops, like kids crying, giving us gifts. Like, I'm drained. Like, I'm mentally drained. This isn't something that hey, let's do this. You know, hey, we should do something. People came to us, Blackwater Brass, very popular, you know, band. They said, hey, we would like to do this. We would love to do a second line. Can we do something? We're like, hey, that's a great idea. It's not us. We want to do it. It's the voice of everybody coming to us. So that's why we come to you. We understand the safety issues. We understand all that. We want to do what's best for the city, you know, for the people of the city. So, I mean, like, we're not heartbroken about today, like, hey, you can't do it. We get it, you know. It's nice that he brought up safety issues of people wanting to do something, you know. We understand that as well. But I just wanted to convey, like, where these ideas come from. Like, it's not me, her, Matt. Like I said, we were like this main, yeah, we were just this main caretaker. So people come to us. They understand who we are. And so that's why we wanted to convey. And I get it. Like, you know, it's his opinion that you can't close the street. So I understand, you know, keyword is opinion, but like, if this isn't like a city, if this isn't like a public event, I don't know what is. This thing went nationwide. But again, so, you know, I understand there's people outside kind of mocking this whole thing. I get it, but we don't care about, if Ocean Springs cared about people outside, we wouldn't be Ocean Springs. But no, we do understand everything that goes on, and even if we can do something small, with your guy, like, we want everybody's support. We don't want to do something like, hey, we don't want to do this, that, or that. We just want everybody's support. It's 7 days a week. It's a short notice, so maybe we can do something small, maybe a little further out, just something, just kind of like, maybe give it some thought is what we're asking. And that's really just all I wanted to say.
Well, for the record, I just want to say that the city of Ocean Springs in no way condones any acts of cruelty to any animals. You know, it's not who we are, it's not what we do. So I want that to be, you know, part of this discussion here, because what happened was very unfortunate. And a very bad situation that people have put us in that we don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about y'all. I'm talking about.
I know.
And really, it's it has gone nationwide. It's not been a positive light on Ocean Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what the chief is saying there is that his concern is that we've already seen what certain people will do. You know, his concern is what certain people might do again in our city, and that's something we just really see.
And that makes sense. I mean, that makes total. That's something that I didn't think about, you know. So it makes sense.
And you know, we hear a lot more, like he says, his intel is there. So,
well, we appreciate you guys.
Just as an alternative, Mayor, I don't know what the schedule looks like at Freedom Field, Stephen, but that field can accommodate a lot of people.
We'll make it work.
I mean, it's got parking around it. I mean, it's basically a public park. Anybody can go out there at any given time. That's a big field. Right. You can get a lot of people out there, and it's got a track around it. If you did want to execute the second line or whatever, it's got the track all the way around it.
Yeah,
so
maybe for
I don't know. I think their vision was they were trying to keep it around.
Well, I get that, but I mean,
and I know that's alternative, but if y'all decide to use the sidewalk, just make sure you have everybody knows from the beginning they can't step off the sidewalk, and everybody knows the rules.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah, we're not gonna do anything disruptive that the city doesn't want. I mean, it's just not gonna happen. We want support from everybody. And then, you know, if we gotta do something small, we'll do it small. But, you know, we obviously want to go through the steps that we should go through, you know. Like, we appreciate the time. I think we took enough time already, so thank you guys very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'll get you something by Friday.
Okay, thank you.
And we really did tell the chief, keeping that block party.
Yeah, no, I really,
Thank you.
you guys appreciate
And
it.
I very rarely do this. I very rarely get the opportunity, but Oren and Matt and everybody, I want everybody publicly to know how much they helped us in this. My officers would not have been able to get the arrests that they got without y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Anything else, Ricky?
No.
Al, I just want to thank you for the last couple of weeks. A couple of signs that was hot down. Y'all got it back up.
Right.
I'm fine.
just want to say one thing, well, two things. So you have Public Works Week. Congratulations to you guys for that, and thank you all for, like Dr. Moore said, couldn't do it without y'all. Couldn't operate without y'all. All of you saw on the consent agenda for the addendum, the sidewalk project. And it's finally coming back to life.
You're welcome.
Right? Carolyn, Wade, Planning Department, Bill Department, whoever, I know Carolyn was the go-to person on this, dealing with NDOT. For those of you who don't know, 6 years ago, roughly, this project started. 6 years ago it started. And this is the Government Street Sidewalk project that finally connects it all the way out to Anshaw Road to the middle school. Very unfortunate situation with the contractor that was awarded the NDOT project, passed away while out of the country, which was something that I don't know if we had ever had to deal with. MDOT had not had to deal with it.
MDOT had not had to deal with it. No.
The engineer involved had not dealt with it, and it took better part of 3 to 4 years to close the original project out to be able to move forward with this. So it's been a lot of hours on the planning department, and I know they're glad it's over with, but we should see this move forward because we did approve it tonight. The plans are there, everything's ready to go to bid.
Everything's been discussed informally. Now we just have to go through the formal approval process and advertise fall.
Yeah, so hopefully this fall, all that material like behind the scenes will finally get installed.
I was wondering what the rush was on this to have an addendum. I was like, I didn't get a chance to read it. I almost didn't want to accept it.
Well, until this was
You had to
approved,
step outside.
all this does is allow them to officially review the plans.
Correct. So thank you all for that work, and this is something that the community on the end of town that Ricky doesn't realize is still in the city limits will greatly benefit from.
Thank you. Alderman Impey.
I just want to publicly thank Public Works as well and the efforts they put in every day in our city. And Mr. Glorioso and Mr. Mayor, thank y'all for the ribbon cutting event out of Trentwood Park. And I think some of y'all probably saw it in the news. The local Girl Scouts started the project a few years ago, raised enough money to install swing sets, some other amenities in Trentwood Park. We had the official ribbon cutting there. It was a great event, and there was kids from one end of that park to the other. But it was really neat to see it come to fruition. I think the Girl Scouts, it's one thing to talk about it, it's one thing to draw up a plan and execute it, but to see it come to fruition, man, it was really neat that those kids' faces just lit up. They were kids hanging all over that swing set, but and they're looking forward to progressing to phase 2, which I don't know how long that will take. Lord knows how many boxes of cookies they sold just to get what they did, but
with them it won't be long.
Do what?
With them it will not be long.
Probably won't, no, but it's kind of a throwaway term. Everybody talks about the leaders of tomorrow. Well, these little girls are go-getters, man. They will be the leaders of tomorrow, man. They're learning skills now that will serve them well the rest of their lives, and I look forward to seeing what they accomplish as they get older. But I want to thank them for their efforts.
Mike, what was it that they raised for the first phase? They raised
$10,000.
Quite a bit of money.
That swing set with that had the standard swings, the parent-child swing, handicap swing, a black, which dedicated the effort to Sophia Myers, their former member of that, to the Girl Scouts, and then the mushrooms and, you know, the play items. But, you know, of course, Mr. Glorioso knows that the playground equipment is tremendously expensive. It's incredible. But, you know, $10,000 is what they raised initially. And, I'm not sure where they propose to go with phase two, but I'm sure it will be another at least several $1,000s. So, yeah, good job on their part. Appreciate their participation.
Yeah, that was very nice.
You know, I said it out there that day. You know, there's a lot of people that come to the alderman or the mayor and other city officials. Like, man, such and such and such. This would be a great idea, or maybe we need to form a committee. And you say, great, would you like to serve on that committee? Oh, no, I think it's a great idea, but for somebody else, you know, I don't necessarily want to participate. But the girls, they were all in. They proposed it, they carried it out, they accomplished it, so kudos to them. That's all I've got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll echo everything you said. It's a special event. Stephen asked if anyone had anything to say, and one little girl stood up there. I mean, she just spoke like, very eloquent and spoke for quite a while.
Yes,
It
it
was
is.
impressive. I don't think we have anything.
I don't have anything.
Okay, so we'll
I
have
want to
to
tell Stephen one thing. Thanks for the fence. The fence looks really great. That's pretty cool.
we need a motion to recess until 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 17th.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Who seconded?
Ricky.
Hey, Doc.